And now for my next number, I'd like to return to the
classic. Time. Alright, this is my third attempt at recording this. But hopefully no more distractions, no more delays. It's time. Yes, I'm doing a thread response today to David Newton's thread about album opening tracks. This has obviously been done before. There's no denying that. But I wanted to jump on this because I saw Mazzy's video response to this. I saw Brandon at Mr. Hall of Fame. I saw his response to this. So I kind of wanted to get my response out there because I knew that it would be fun. Album opening tracks are important for me, at least, because it's the track you hear first on an album, and that is the track that's meant to have you hooked straight away. So, and then all the pieces come together. So really, yeah, it is very important for the album opening track to be good. And what I've done with this response, my response, is I've tried to avoid obvious answers. So Led Zeppelin, they're escaping me now, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Arctic Monkeys, Stevie Wonder, yeah, just any obvious answers. I mean, there may be one or two in here, and I've also tried to stay clear of stuff I usually show here on my channel. I tried to switch it up a little bit. So let me get into this. I do have, like everybody else, I have 20 things to show. Unfortunately, the first one I don't have on vinyl just yet. I still have this. I only have this on CD. That's Chemical Brothers with Exit Planet Dust. The opening track is called Leave Home. If you can see that on there, ignore my loose change in the glare, in the reflection. But yeah, this is a very good, not only is it a very good album, but the track Leave Home itself is probably in competition for being in my top 3 favorite Chemical Brothers songs for sure. So I had to throw that one in there. Leave Home by Chemical Brothers. I'm throwing that one in there. Definitely a good way to kick that album off. Let's keep going. Anderson .Paak, Oxnard. The Chase is the opening track on this album. And what it does is it starts with some sound effects of like the streets, and then slowly builds up from there. Some drums come in and some whistles and what have you, and then there's a tiny pause, and then Anderson's drums come in and the bass, and the track starts from there. And it is a phenomenal way to open this album because there's really only 1 or 2 standout songs on this album for me, and The Chase happens to be one of them. It's also the song he opened it up with when I saw him live earlier on in the year. So have to give praise to Anderson .Paak there with Oxnard. I'll put that over here actually. Next up, what is probably one of my favorite album opening tracks is off of this album, I Am by Earth, Wind & Fire. I'm talking about In the Stone, of course. Fantastic opening track. Actually, I don't know, you can kind of see that. In the Stone, which has opened up a few of my DJ sets, especially when we do AE's nights and soul nights. In the Stone has famously opened a few of my sets, so you know it's good when it does that. But yeah, there it is. In the Stone by Earth, Wind & Fire. Had to give that one a quick mention. Gangstar, Moment of Truth, a piece of hip hop here. My favorite Gangstar album, and the opening track on here is You Know My Steez. Now, what makes a great hip hop album, other than the fact that you can listen to it from start to finish without skipping any tracks, which Gangstar pretty much has on, I'd say a good, in fact, I'd say they have it out on all of their albums. But there's some big songs on this album. Above the Clouds, JFK to LAX, Moment of Truth, the title track, The Militia. Yeah, every song on here is just a winner. And it says somewhere down there, DJ Friendly Vinyl, triple LP, one of the few triple albums I own in my collection. But this is a good one. I like this album. And You Know My Steez has to be maybe one of the best ways to open an album that I've ever heard. So, Gangstar's You Know My Steez off their Moment of Truth album is another track I wanted to talk about. Don't worry, there won't be too many hip-hop albums in this video. I've only really picked one or two. Next up, maybe not the most popular choice, but I do like this band quite a bit, Linkin Park. Hybrid Theory, opening track, Uppercut, or Paper Cut, excuse me, not Uppercut, Paper Cut. And then that's also backed with One Step Closer, which are two of my favourite Linkin Park songs. I don't know what's wrong with me, I can't get words out, but don't worry, I'm not editing this, we're doing this raw. Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory, not my favourite album from them, but easily has my favourite opening track from them, because it's the song that they use to get me hooked on this album. So, in fact, the first two tracks. So I had to give that one a mention, especially because it is their debut. And just look at those hairstyles. You know, it was the 90s with hairstyles like those, blonde on Chester, R.I.P., and red hair on Mike Shinoda. Yeah. Anyways, moving on from Linkin Park to a piece of indie rock here. Everything. A Fever Dream, the name of the album. Opening track, Night of the Long Knives. And the reason this gets credit is because Night of the Long Knives resembles the earlier sound that Everything became known for from their fans from their first three albums. And then that track kind of opens this album, but then every other song from there is completely different to the rest of their discography. And although this is my favourite album from them, I gotta give praise to Night of the Long Knives, because that is a great way to open up this album. Very synthy, very get very rocky by the chorus, and it is very, very good. Stellar opening. Next up, actually, I'm glad I pulled this one, because me and my boss were talking about this particular artist at work. Not just this album, but this artist in general. George Benson, Give Me the Night album. Love Times Love is the opening track on this one. And I don't think you can beat a single... I don't know if George Benson has a bad album, really, but this is obviously his most famous album. And I think everything he's done outside of Give Me the Night, really, has been very overlooked. So yeah, there's Give Me the Night by George Benson. Love Times Love, I guess, technically. Here's another hip-hop album. EPMD, Strictly Business. The title track is the opening track, Strictly Business, which contains a very modest sample of Eric Clapton's version of I Shot the Sheriff. And again, going back to the perfect hip-hop album of albums you can listen to from start to finish, this one's in there. But we're not talking about that. We are talking about album openers, and Strictly Business on the album Strictly Business by EPMD. By far one of the best ways to open any hip-hop album I think I've ever heard, outside of obviously like Straight Outta Compton and, you know, the really obvious albums that everyone thinks of immediately when you think of old school hip-hop. Next up, yeah, some Little River Band, Time Exposure. The Night Owls opens up this album. And I do not remember any of the other songs on this album. So that must mean that the Night Owls had a good impact on me, because I remember it more than any of the other tracks on here. I'm sure they're good, but there's a reason I went through my collection and pulled stuff I wouldn't normally show. And that's because I wanted to go back and re-listen to some of these. And I will create a YouTube playlist of all of these opening tracks. And I'll leave that in the top line of the description so you can check out some of these songs if you're not familiar. Yeah, those are Little River Band with the Night Owls. This next one I assume everybody will know. Yeah. Of course, Get Up, Stand Up. Bob Marley's got a few great opening tracks, but as I'm filming this video, this is probably my favourite one. Brilliant, brilliant song off a brilliant album by Brilliant Eyes. So yeah, Get Up, Stand Up, of course. Next one up. I kind of feel bad for including this one because it's kind of cheating, as all 4 of the first songs on here I really love. But of course the opening track, Mama, which is the opening track here, as I just said, is a great way to open this album, I believe. Maybe Genesis' best album in my personal opinion. I really like it. I think it's a stellar album. Definitely the first one I heard all the way through from them. And yeah, so there it is, the song Mama from Genesis' self-titled album. What do we have next? Oh yeah, some weather report. Birdland, opening track on the Heavy Weather album. Nice piece of jazz here. I don't listen to too many jazz albums intently, but this is one that really had me hooked, so had to pull that one aside. The only other one that's done that, well, there's a couple that have done that: Bitches Brew by Miles Davis, Monk's Dream by Thelonious Monk, and A Love Supreme by John Coltrane, but none of them I own on vinyl. So that's the only one I can show you. This is a pretty obvious one. Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. Title track is also the opening track. And here's a thing, is this album is still relevant in today's society, because it's a very political album when Marvin was going political and wanted to talk about what was going on in the world. So it's still a very relevant album, even though it came out, what, 71? Somewhere around like that? I think it was 71. Yeah, 71. But yeah. This also would have been like my favourite album closers, but yeah, it's just a phenomenal album and opens perfectly, closes perfectly, but I had to pick one of them and I included it here. A live album. Now, I don't know if we're including live albums, but I am. So let me talk about this one real quick. Gary Clark Jr. Live. Opens with his cover of Catfish Blues, which I believe this is the only way you can hear that song. But hearing that song live from Gary Clark Jr., having his talent, absolutely incredible stuff. He is a very talented musician, just phenomenal. And what a way to kick off a live set with that cover. It makes it very psychedelic. Very bluesy, psychedelic, and it's very good. So yeah, there it is, Gary Clark Jr.'s Catfish Blues. Here's one. Again, I assume everyone will know this one. Rainbow, Long Live Rock and Roll. Again, the opening track is the title track. Great album from Rainbow. Not a big Rainbow fan, but when I heard Long Live Rock and Roll, I was hooked on this album, so did Summit. Here's another one, Arcade Fire, The Suburbs. This is kind of a twofer because the first 2 tracks lead into one another. Oh, well, the first track leads into the second track. The Suburbs, the title track, again, leads into a song called Ready to Start, which I think it's just a great way to open this album when you have the first two tracks leading perfectly into each other. I think that is incredible. So that's what had me hooked on this album, and that's what made this album stand out for me more so than anything else. So yeah, there is the Suburbs by Arcade Fire. I won't include Ready to Start, I'll just include the Suburbs. But if you know that album, then you already know. But here's another one that might get some people talking or a little bit confused. Childish Gambino's Awaken My Love. Now, if you don't know this opening track, the song Me and Your Mama, it is a psychedelic song. Now, this album was very had a lot of commercial success for Childish Gambino because he did a lot of we covered all bases with this album: psych, hip hop, soul, a little bit of reggae, some pop in there. But comes under that psychedelic pop genre, especially with the opening track, which if you listen to it, you'll understand what I mean. It is a great album. Talk. Happiness is Easy. Brilliant stuff from them. Great, one of my favorite 80s albums as well, and I don't blame them because, once again, the first three songs on this album get me hooked every single time. But Happiness is Easy is just a great way to open this one out. So, very good album from there. Talk. Bit of Sade. Now, of course, we all know this album, Love Deluxe, for the song Cherish the Day. But the opening track on here is actually No Ordinary Love, which both of those songs are two of my favorite Sade songs, maybe my top two at least. So that's why I had to show this one. No Ordinary Love is an incredible album, or an incredible song by Sade, off an incredible album. So had to give that one a mention. Stellar stuff. Stellar stuff. And that's an original as well, which I'm pretty proud of. This is the last one. Can't believe we're here already. This is probably the most obscure one. And it's an album I think I've only ever listened to once, but I remember the opening track so well. Because I remember buying this just out of recommendation. And I put the needle down on the record, and that opening track that played off of this album just had me hooked and made a fan out of me. And of course, that is Jay Church's song I Remember. It's very chilled, very lo-fi. He has a very I want to think of what kind of voice he has in the song. It's a very kind of I guess Elliott Smith type voice with a very chilled lo-fi kind of guitar and drums underneath. It's very hard to explain what this is, but like I said, I'll make a playlist of all the opening tracks I've talked about in this video. So yeah, there it is, Jay Church's I Remember. There you go. So there we have it. Yeah, 20 opening tracks from albums I love or want to revisit, and just album tracks that stood out to me from the first time I heard those albums, and reasons to go back and I guess revisit a lot of them. So that's going to do it for this video. Guys, thanks again for tuning back into the channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, and please check out my 200 subscriber contest, because that's going on at the moment. And I will see you guys again very soon. Peace.